I'll go into this a little bit. I'm going to get kind of vulnerable.
How does your competitive background affect your team?
I believe I have only heard God 3 times because when God speaks, he wants it to be very profound. They can't see the big responsibility that they have on other people's lives.
Actually getting into the ring. Were you nervous at all when you first stepped in?
An individual that says that they're not is lying. I would love to get the word out, man. My goal is to get people saved, man.
Clap sync. Clap sync. Yeah. All right, 1, 2, 3. Beautiful.
We did it.
Yay!
Yay!
That was completely planned.
We're so talented.
Dude, this is the best of the best right here.
I know, man. It doesn't get any better than this. It really doesn't.
All right.
All right. Welcome everybody. This is Katalyst Combos. My name is Daniel. We're here today to talk about a little bit about myself. Last week there was an episode that was that kind of followed David's story, and I'm here today to give you a little bit of information based off of me, and really excited about it.
Awesome, Dan. Hey guys, I'm back. Welcome. So let's go ahead and immediately get into, I want to follow the same path that I did with David,
Yeah.
where I went into the background and sort of experiences. So let's go ahead and hear that overview, Dan, of what your martial arts experience was. It sounded like you had a lot more in the competitive nature with martial arts versus David, of course, going into the self-defense and seminar side.
Yeah.
So let's hear about the competitive side.
Well, I want just kind of everybody to understand too. Like there was a point when I started my martial arts career journey. I'll say that I started at 10, so like I didn't even start competing till I was 20. So there was 10 years of me studying the arts that I know before I actually got into the competition circuit.
Feel bad for your first opponent,
Right.
there.
So I
Jesus.
did have like a really big upper hand.
Yeah.
Right, when it came to that. And the reason why I transitioned into the competitive circuit is because I felt that I had kind of accomplished as much as I could with my training in the self-defense world. And I was like, I haven't done anything else other than compete. Like, why not try it, right? Just to say that I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I never really had a big interest in competing. I really didn't until I physically went and did it, right? Yeah. So we kind of fast forward a little bit. I started competing when I was like 20, 21. I'm 40 now. So I spent about collectively 10 years in focusing on competition with my training, right?
Okay.
Had 6 fights. Was very successful as an amateur in Muay Thai. Didn't really do any mixed martial arts fights. It was strictly stand up.
Okay.
But, I did my first fight just to say that I tried, and I did it, and I fell in love with it.
I was about to ask, what goes into training for a competitive fight versus self-defense? Like, what was this is very obviously different.
Yeah, so it's huge. There's such a big difference, right? If you think of the terms in like, you take a professional boxer, right? Or a Greco-Roman like collegiate wrestler. They got to cut weight. They got to eat right. They got to train. They got to do this. And this like is over a course of like months before your competition, right?
And every bit of that edge
right.
to your advantage.
So the individuals that take that seriously, right? That's how this works. There are some, unfortunately, that feel like that the competition level style of training is something that you could get in 2 weeks and be ready for a fight. And, that just goes along with like the mentality of like the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
They
want a fast reward.
Absolutely.
You're not willing to put the work in and
Absolutely.
really put your head to the grindstone.
Yeah. So if I had a competition, I was preparing for it 6 months out. It was a fight camp. And traditionally it would be training 5 or 6 days a week, twice a day, working a full-time job as well, like teaching, right? Taking care of your other responsibilities, like at the home or whatever the case may be.
That's adding on a lot.
Yeah, so I learned after my first fight, like the best way to do that is literally to become a hermit crab for 6 months and just completely like shut myself off from the outside world.
I assume that definitely affected just relationships and everyday life for you.
It did, to a certain extent, right? But I mean, through that though, like I found out who my true friends were.
I was about to say, it's like the truest friends. They're going to support your
Right.
goals and they're going to be there for you.
Right.
Even if you're not necessarily there for them when you're training,
Yeah.
they're still going to be.
And it helped me keep my circle real tight and know exactly who I could depend on.
Not only were you sharpening your skills, but almost like you were improving the quality of your circle.
Yes, I called it going into the hyperbolic time chamber. So it's for you Dragon Ball Z nerds out there. That's what it was about. Like just immersing yourself into this capsule essentially, and not coming out until you're ready.
Add that to the list of media to watch now.
Oh man, you got to jump on it, man. Come on.
All right, so all that training, all that. I'm just curious, how about the actually getting into the ring? How were you nervous at all when you first stepped in?
Yeah, 100%. And an individual that says that they're not is lying, because it's a completely different environment. You've got everyone watching you. You've got the pressure of needing to perform at a high level, right? Because if not, the guy on the other side is going to chew you up, right? That's the goal. Like he doesn't want to lose. You've got the pressure of your coach. You've got the pressure of the people out in the stands that have supported you throughout the entire journey of not wanting to let them down, right? So the environment is completely different than if it would be during a belt test in a self-defense scenario, right? Or a school, right?
It's not necessarily a you versus you kind of situation.
Yeah,
like in
you've
a
got
belt
all
test.
these like outside elements or factors affecting you during that competition, right? And I took this phrase from the guy that like really helped bring me up and trained me like during like my first few fights. Eyes forward, ears open, right? Literally take away, your surrounding environment. Listen to me. This is what he would say, and keep your eyes forward. That way, you eliminate as many distractions as possible.
Is that why sometimes you see boxers or any like professional fighters almost get like tunnel vision, or at least maybe not even professionals, but like amateurs.
Yeah,
they can get that tunnel vision. They're just locked in.
yeah, they get in the zone, right? I mean, it's a statement that's used, in any competitive like sport. You get locked in, you get into the zone, and that is the zone of focus and determination, right?
Flow state.
Yeah, for sure.
That's really cool. That's really cool. Any part of the fights actually that you would actually want to go into your like specific strikes, I guess certain challenges in those fights, how the people were whenever you actually fought them?
Yeah, so the school that I trained at had a very strong reputation. Lynx Academy of Martial Arts, like back in the day, they were essentially the cream of the crop when it came to the mixed martial arts world in this area, right? There were difficulties finding opponents sometimes.
Really?
Right, because of
no one wanted to fight you?
no one, not me specifically, but from someone from that school.
Wow. Okay.
Because of the reputation that they had, right? I mean, they were heavily involved in the competition circuit for 20 years. So they had elite level fighters, 20 years. And we were well known for our striking. We were well known for our grappling, our clinch. Like, so it was really challenging to find opponents, which made it difficult, right?
Yeah.
I would go through this camp, had a camp date set up or a fight date set up, and the guy would back out a week before.
Oh, that sounds like to put so much time and effort into it, and then for it to go ahead and back out.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do from there? Do you just reset and you just try and find another opponent and you just...
Well, I mean, not much you can do other than like hope that there's another opponent, but
you're not finding one.
You're not. You're not finding one in a week before. And then if you do, like, okay, is that person prepared to really fight you?
Is it going to get, yeah, it sounds like it's...
Is the fight going to be good quality? I mean, heck yeah, I'll take an easy win, but I would prefer to battle it out with somebody and look at him at the end of the fight and go, dude, that was sick. Like,
instead of like a mercy rule kind of thing.
Yeah,
like, is the ref going to call it?
Yeah, it's so like I had it happen to me twice. Twice in my competition career, and it was rough, man. Like, it was hard because like you prepped, planned, prepared, got ready, and then, hey man, sorry, the guy backed out. And I would talk to the promoter. I'm like, dude, go find me somebody. Like, I'll go 2 classes up. I don't care. Like, I ain't got nobody for you. I'm sorry. Like, it happened.
Wow.
So yes, it can be discouraging, but like, at the end of
Definitely.
the day, we gotta, step back and just be like, all right, time to reevaluate. Okay, what things did I need to do during my camp that I needed to improve upon, and just kind of take it and run with it, man.
Yeah.
Like, it is what it is.
I assume that's not why you stopped competitive fighting. Why
No, I
why
did.
did you?
I stopped because I really wanted to like go down the route of um, really immersing myself and trying to teach not only just fighters, but take my teaching game to like the next level. And I kind of taught based off of like what I was shown as an instructor and how to teach specific techniques and why we teach it this way, right? I really wanted to dive deeper into teaching the stuff that I know and being able to give it to everybody, right? So I really started to focus more on teaching, and I stepped to the side. Like, I did my thing. I had a great time in the competition circuit, and I enjoyed it. But me as an individual, my favorite thing to do is teach.
That's literally what my next question is about, is how does your competitive background affect your teaching style?
Yeah. So it does in a sense to where, like, if you're a fighter, right, and you wanna compete, there's a certain level of teaching that you want, right? If you have a mindset of wanting to be really good and willing to do what it takes to be very detailed in your approach, and when you train and when you go out into a fight, like, you want someone that's able to give you detailed explanation behind the techniques and why we're doing it this way and why we're doing it this timing and why we're executing it then,
Big why right
right?
there.
So my approach changed a bit when it came to like teaching at a competition level, right? I was a bit less understanding when it came to like, okay, I expect you to get this by this time. Why aren't you doing it? And 9 times out of 10, it fell on the fighter. They weren't doing their homework,
Mm.
right? And the biggest problem that I had with like coaching fighters was them doing their homework mainly on the endurance side. Like, why aren't you running at home?
They
Like, I
would
can tell that you're not running at home.
they
Don't
would
lie.
be gassed at practice
Yeah.
when they shouldn't be.
Yeah. That and the idea of them physically getting into the ring and me telling them before they get into the ring, listen to what I say. Right? 9 times out of 10, it goes right out the window.
Just because they're so tired, or
No,
it's just
not
like,
even that. I feel like that some people are it's hard for them to adapt to being in that environment right away. So they naturally just go to this like, I'm just going to
fight or
rely on my
flight.
complete instincts and try to do what I can. Um,
Kind
but
of referencing the tunnel vision we were talking about
right,
earlier.
but if they only just opened their ears and kept their eyes forward, right?
Good
They
callback.
Yeah, they would, like, you would benefit from that, right? And I've had fighters that didn't do it, and I've had fighters that I've trained did do it, and the ones that did do it were successful.
I assume you pushed the intensity on the fighters that were willing to show.
Yeah,
How,
absolutely.
would you say it was easier or harder to go ahead and like really push those fighters? Because I could see one side where it's harder to push them because it's obviously a harder activity, but I could also see it being easier because they're more willing
Right.
and they're more serious about it.
So went nice when you get into this like style of teaching and you're in the environment of like fighters, right? Uh, half of them, I almost hit it. Half of
That's what you were going for.
half of them um, think that fighting is for them until they get into the environment, until they go through the training, until they get pushed by a coach at a higher level and at a level that they've never been pushed before, because it's so different. It is so different. My students used to tell me, like, how can you change from one Dan to another Dan in a different environment?
Did have like flip
I
personalities for
did.
those two?
I had to. Because if I didn't, I'm not benefiting the fighter. I'm not doing that because it's not made for everybody. However, I can't teach my basic self-defense class at the level of a
A
fighter.
professional fighter.
I can't. I can't do that because you, as someone coming in that just wants to learn self-defense, don't want to get grilled by your coach
Yeah.
and ripped to pieces, right? You want something that's encouraging, that's going to uplift you and build you and keep you coming back to class, right? Now, you keep coming to class, and at some point you're like, I'm going to try this fighting thing out. So there's this whole like evolutionary phase of training.
That's funny the way that you're describing this is because this is actually exactly how I feel with being a trainer at Planet Fitness.
Yeah.
I'm like in a belt system, I guess. It's like I'm interacting with white belts on an every single day thing, making the classes enjoyable, and I'm making sure that they're actually coming back and committing to the whole lifestyle of coming into the gym.
Mhm.
But I don't necessarily think I have the capabilities to, I guess, push a competitive bodybuilder, for example.
Right.
So that's maybe that, I don't know if that would be my next step per se, but that's just, it's funny that's how you describe that and those go hand in hand.
Yeah.
One thing that's nice is how rewarding it is, especially to work with our members. I don't, is it the same thing with you, whether it's new members or like your best fighters? Like, what is the most rewarding part of both of those sides?
So my favorite thing about newer members and people just like stepping in for the first time and first of all, it's like they're literally landing on a brand new planet. They're having all these things like thrown at them, right? But like my biggest thing with that is them coming up to me like a week or two into the training and the class, they've already taken a few classes and they come up and they go, I've learned like so much in the 2 weeks that I've been here. And I usually ask them, I'm like, okay, what's the most comforting thing, or not comforting, but what is your favorite thing that you've learned so far, right? So we pinpoint it, right? Oh, well, I remember when I came in, I couldn't even stand properly, and now I can. I feel comfortable moving. Da 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 da. Like, so to me, having them come up to you and tell you that they are comfortable now shows that they're ready and willing to keep going, right? But you have to, as a coach, you got to be like, all right, look, we got to start expanding that comfort zone. And how do we expand it? We got to step out of it, right? We can't grow our comfort zone if we don't step out, right? Because eventually the uncomfortable zone becomes the comfort zone. And then we keep stretching it and stretching it and stretching it and stretching it, right? And in terms of a fighter, someone that has never fought before, but is like really hungry for it, I look forward to those humbling moments for them. No, seriously, like it's funny, but like in all seriousness, like I have, when you create those, not me specifically, but when they get humbled, right? And you go and you miss out on an opportunity to build them up from that broken moment, like that's that to me is if a coach can identify that and see that before it gets bad, that is going to make or break whether they continue to train and that competition like atmosphere, because you will be broken. Like if you're being trained properly, it's not supposed to feel comfortable. You're literally being pushed through a grinder, like you're being ground up, right? You're being challenged consistently, mentally, physically, and emotionally. If your coach is teaching or coaching you at a competition level and you don't feel that, it's not being done right.
That definitely sounds like any coach that I've heard from friends, they describe coaches that have made them start to resent the sport or hate that sport.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it sounds like they've done. They go ahead and push, push, push. They go ahead and break them down, break, break, drill after drill, just making sure like might be getting better, but their willpower is just increasing and just dying on it. And they just eventually get to where they're so fed up and they've never been built back up that they're just broken.
Yeah. So and in all honesty, like that is not their fault. That is their coach's fault. That is the coach's fault that they are not identifying areas that they're fighters are being broken in, and they're not building them back up because you have to. 100%.
Just curious. I'm just heartbreaking to think of all the incredible athletes that have been lost because of just that bad coach.
And so here's the thing, right? And I'll kind of like I'll go a little bit deeper into it, right? From a coach's perspective, like we have such a big responsibility. And some of us want to coach and want to experience like how it feels to be wanted, right? And looked up to, but a lot of them can't handle the responsibility of what you truly are is a leader, right? They're so bent up on their ego and their
Power
past.
complex.
Yes, they're so built up on that they can't see the big responsibility that they have on other people's lives. It's huge, man.
Gold. That's awesome. Um, Going back to a little bit on the Planet Fitness side with me, it's that same moment of like not realizing the importance when I had a member come up to me asking for a specific workout plan, and they were asking, I asked them deal and asked them what their goals were. They just wanted to go ahead and stand up comfortably again, like from sitting to standing.
Yeah.
That is something that gets so overlooked by me as a young and also healthy person.
Yeah.
I never even think about the fact that even that's not or possible for them.
Yeah.
So going back, that is just important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So with that being said, you obviously have a lot of experience. I'm not mistaken, 30 years experience.
Mm.
Obviously, you've built up a big community and networked with a ton of people across the industry. What was it like working with so many people over, I guess, those 30 years? That's a long time span. I know maybe if we can cut it up into started, like into the competitive nature, that would be really interesting.
Yeah. So, yep. Good.
Yep.
So, man, this is a really good question because I feel like that because I've such a had such a long journey. I have been able to be like in front of so many like awesome martial artists and just awesome people. But the my first 10 years in training was spent in a self-defense slash um like like turning into an instructor, right? And for me, that time period of my training was the most valuable.
Chris, did you like know from the start that you wanted to become an instructor?
No, I didn't.
What was that like realization? It's like I love
Uh,
this so much.
well, I started like assisting in classes and just like helping with kids when I was like 14, right? And I just kind of did it as a job, right? Because I loved being at the school so much. I would spend a lot of time there anyway. Like I would literally get out of school, ride my bike there, and just hang out until my class started at 5 o'clock, 5:30, right? So like one of the instructors there was like, "Hey, did you ever think about like just assisting with classes?" And I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm here anyway. Like, why not?" Right? Um, so I started to fall in love with like training kids. After about a year or two, like just seeing, even at my like young age of like 15, 16, just seeing the growth in the kids and just being around them and seeing them from day one to like where they were after 6 months and how much they've learned. Um, it started to become like less of a job and more of like value added to my life and being able to like affect their lives in a positive way.
Give
Uh,
them something to look up to.
Absolutely, man. And like the responsibility again of an instructor, like one of my uh, instructors that kind of brought me up, he's like, "Hey, man, look, you're a superhero, dude."
Yeah, that's actually exactly what when I was younger, around that same age, doing the assisting classes as well.
Yeah.
My instructor said it's very difficult for a student to look up to the sensei and think that that's possible for them.
Yeah.
The coach or the assistant for the class was the middleman to have a more, I guess you could say, more feasible goal
Yep.
and push them that even stronger, like genuinely like a mentor, like friend
Yeah.
model.
Yeah. And and with that too, like we go back to this whole, like I was talking about earlier, the responsibility that we have as instructors, right? And, you're a role model. Um, can everyone handle that?
That is definitely tougher for a 14-year-old to handle, especially.
Well, yeah, well, I mean, I started there when I was 10, and I grew up quick, man, because of like not just that, but like my family and my dad and my parents and how they raised me. Like my dad was super old school. My mom was like the same way. Like they brought us up right.
Very much a nuclear.
Yeah, brought us up right, and like not only did I have that, but I also had the upbringing of being in a martial arts school, like 5 or 6 days a week, three hours or 4 hours a day, and hanging out with adults, right? And so I grew up really quick, which now that I look back at it, like it's awesome. Like, why would you not want
You
to
don't
be exposed to that at an early age?
no sort of regret in regards to feeling like you missed or like feeling like you missed out on a
None,
childhood or anything.
none, man. Because like I try to look back and I try to find something that I missed out on, and the value of what I received during that time period um, supersedes anything because I can see it from like a mature aspect.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Sort of going back to those years, especially when you first started, like the first 10 years we mentioned earlier, meeting all those kinds of people,
Yeah.
whether it was friends, mentors, instructors. I'm curious on when you actually met David.
So David and I actually got connected uh, about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was through a men's group, church, and the two of us would always go every year go to this like retreat. We went on a men's retreat with our pastor, and we obviously had some commonality. We both trained martial arts. We both like
I
you
didn't
know
realize you guys were in the same men's group or
yeah.
like went to the same church and all
Yeah,
that.
and so one year we all sat. One of my favorite things to do is like a whiteboard session, and this was part of like the retreat. It was like you would, because the retreat was not only like a Christian based one, but it was also like an entrepreneurial based one, right? So we would sit down with our pastor and then like 7 or 8 other guys, and we would have this big whiteboard in the room, and we would talk about like ideas that we had, and we would all brainstorm together, right? Um, so I actually was able to see David put this Katalyst on a whiteboard.
That's got to be the cool, like most surreal thing.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, at the end of it, because both of us had the same like idea, like I wanted to open my own martial arts school at some point, and it was during the same retreat. My pastor goes like, "Why don't you guys just work together?" So we didn't. We were like, "Oh, that's a
What?
good idea." I was like, "Oh, it's a good idea, yeah." But we both were just like, "Nah, we're too busy." Blah 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 blah.
Oh
But now here
no.
we are, right? So I know we're going to talk about this later, but it's never on our timing.
Yes.
It never is.
No, it's not.
It's never on our timing. It's on someone else's timing. It's on God's timing.
God works in very, very interesting ways.
So David and I now are here,
It's
like,
awesome.
working together essentially.
So you obviously didn't start your own school, but now you are here at Katalyst running the kids program.
Mm.
So what exactly would you say your plans for that are?
Man, big ones,
All right.
right?
Well, let's
But
hear it.
let's start off small though, right? And I think that's important to kind of set the tone for it, right? First and foremost, I feel that I have been placed on this earth for a specific reason, and it's in the realm of children. Um, because to be quite honest, we talked about this a little bit ago. Like to see their growth and development is one of the coolest things in the world, and like the whole goal with this program is not to build kids that know how to defend themselves. Like first, right? That's the second thing. The first thing, the most important thing, is building respectful, disciplined, and good kids, right? Yeah, because if you think about it, realistically, it takes a tribe to raise children.
Yeah.
And and parents out there nowadays, their jobs are demanding. There are other things that they are doing on the side that are demanding, and it's challenging to raise kids and help them grow, right? Because at the end of the day, they may be so exhausted that they can't pour into them.
There's sometimes when, yeah, it's so demanding, and eventually it's the point where the nanny or the babysitter is basically raising them.
Right. So I feel like this is a big responsibility for me, right? To help these kids just become good overall human beings. Like the program that we have here is not just about self-defense. We have a whole character development program that I'm going to launch here in a couple months for monthly homework assignments, teaching them about respect and discipline and courtesy and this, that, and the other. There's going to be physical fitness requirements. There's going to be all these cool things in order to like elevate to your next rank, right? And I want to make sure that we set the standard off right with that because at the end of the day, with adults and kids, to become successful, we need someone to give us structure. And
That's
without that structure, or proper structure, kids aren't going to grow in the right way.
Yeah, they even could go ahead and start growing in the wrong way. You teach a bunch of kids, especially let's say the age group is getting into middle school boys, they start to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
You could have a Cobra Kai situation where even they used to go ahead and they're not just defending themselves, but they go ahead and start maybe even bullying and start attacking their other students and peers, which I'll get a little vulnerable in this case, which is sort of the direction that I started to take. And I look back and I'm just nothing but shameful about it because at the time it was just consistent arguing and never physically fighting. I was too much of a wuss to do that.
Yeah.
But it was just verbal, just assault, disagreements, just continuous. With one of my best friends now, I'll say, I know, Jack, you're watching this, and it was just something that I wish I had is that structure.
Yeah.
So the fact you're adding that in is just going to level up everything about the plan here with Katalyst Kids.
Yeah.
Cool.
That, I think, the moments of vulnerability that we have are hard. And like I look back when I was competing 20 to 28 years old, like what an a-hole I was.
It's just
And
the continuous thought.
I am ashamed. Like you think about, we're kind of going off the loop here, but it's fine. I think about the people's lives that I affected in a negative way. How many people I hurt just because I thought I was cool, right? Like it's not really worth it.
No, just to think that you're a little cooler than everyone else, which in hindsight you never are.
No,
you're just an ass.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
That's good on the reflection though. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of reflection, this next section I have marked down is reflection. We're also going to start going into a little bit of faith-wise, which I know that's a huge part of your life.
Yeah.
So this could be a good topic just for a full podcast, but we'll just graze over it.
Yeah.
Looking back, what advice would you give to your younger self? We could go ahead and go all the way back to Starry Cry, give them a little insight on what the path is going to look like, or even 28-year-old version.
Yeah, so I think I'll dive into that specific time frame, that 20 to 28-year-old time frame, because I feel like with the time before that, I feel like that I was just a good overall human being. I was doing what I needed to do and handling my responsibilities as an instructor and pouring into lives and helping people. But there was that time frame from 20 to 28 where I kind of shifted. And I went into a dark period of my life. And if I could go back and tell my younger self something that I think would change that time period, would be to listen to my older sister, because she had been for over 10 years at that point, was trying to get me to develop a relationship with God. And I feel like if I had done that, and if I could go back and tell my younger self that at that time period, things would be a lot different now. I would have affected a lot less lives in a negative way. I didn't listen because I didn't believe.
How about when you actually started teaching? When you were that young coach instructor?
Yeah. So it the biggest piece of advice that I feel like at that point, for me going back, it would be to absorb as much as you can. Um, sometimes I got so caught up with the one way to teach. There's not one way to teach. So many ways to teach and affect your students in a positive way, right? I wish I would have had the knowledge that I have now with my teaching skills then, right? Because at that point, my teaching skills would have been optimized for my students, right? And being able to give them full value of what they wanted to learn. However, right, if I didn't do that, if I didn't go through those early stages, like, and I didn't have those falls, right? Because you mess up sometimes as an instructor,
We like it or not.
whether we like it or not, and I wouldn't be who I am now. But yeah, I like if I could talk to my 15-year-old self, I'd be like, hey man, open your ears and listen to what these people are telling your instructors are telling you to do, and be open-minded
That's
when it comes to teaching.
even when I was both a young instructor and also there were so the whole premise it was at the school it was called Karate for Christ. It
Yeah.
was Christ-like. They had the messages after classes.
Yeah.
One of those messages, and that very much was a missed opportunity for me.
Yeah.
Because obviously the intention was there to go ahead and create that great godlike person that wouldn't end up becoming like that Cobra Kai where they bully.
Yeah.
And it just never sunk with me.
Mm.
So I just wish that I could tell them to just open the ears a little bit more, very much similar with you, and just listen.
Yeah.
Just be more open minded, willing to actually come. And God, quite literally all around me.
Yeah. You got to give yourself some grace though, man. You were 15, right?
Yeah, 15-year-olds. It's tough to get under, get in there.
I think from the age of 15 to 17, we're all just stupid.
Yeah.
Like, we just, well, not dumb, just we have so much lack of awareness. It's not even funny.
That frontal cortex. I mean, they tell me that it develops till 25, so apparently I'm still in that
Yeah.
phase, which I'm excited for. Feel well-rounded right
Yeah.
now, but we'll
Wait
see.
till it clicks, man. You're just gonna be like, "Oh, this is so cool.
Whole nother universe.
I have wisdom now."
In regards to that, though, I think of like all the goals that I've set for myself as well. What are some of the goals that you have actually set for yourself throughout your martial arts career, whether it's teaching, whether it's fighting, and which ones have you actually accomplished? Which ones are on the back burner?
Yeah. So the one that comes to mind first is my teaching. As far as like how deep that I've gotten involved in like being able to effectively teach anybody. Like I had after I finished my fight career, I took the last like 5 years of really I had a goal to break down every single technique and make it easy and applicable to teach to anyone, right? And I really feel like I've mastered that because this martial arts stuff is not just for a select few. It's for everyone. So being able to break down techniques and teach it in a way that everyone's going to learn it, not just some people, right? So there's that, and like the goals as far as like the competition circuit, like I set goals to, ideally when we jump into the competition circuit, we want to compete and never lose. I was able to accomplish that. My record was 6-0, right? So
Great record.
yeah, it's okay. No, yeah, no, that was something that not only I was like, oh, I want to go in there and just be undefeated, but my mindset was there's always somewhere out there better than me, and I need to train more. Right. So I think that really helped me and drove me to compete at the level that I was. I am in no way an elite level athlete. And it's really not like talent is never better than dedication, right? And discipline. You can
Yeah.
have someone that's talented and and that doesn't apply dedication and doesn't have discipline, and they're a wash.
What happens?
Yeah. And you can have talent and get talent through dedication and discipline, right?
That's where it compounds, source to stop. Just out of curiosity, so you mentioned the 6-0 record. Did you ever have any sort of mental like preparation if you lose or if you would have lost?
No. No, I mean, obviously I had to interrogate the reality that I could, right? Um, I did a lot of my losing in in training.
Okay.
Like I was humbled preparing for my fight.
Did that scare you?
Yeah.
You
I not in the sense of like losing, like, oh man, like I lost, but my big thing was like disappointing the people that helped me. Like if I lost, it really wasn't my loss. Everyone else lost that helped me.
you carrying
I
the mind of everyone back.
Yeah.
That's what worries you.
So yeah, and when I went into this stuff and part of like my mentality was, all right, man, look, these people have dedicated time to help you, right? They have taken time out of their day to be here for you. You need to be grateful for that. And you can't let them down.
Motivator for you. I could also see how that would also a point that people crumble under that.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure. Pressure does two things. Bust pipes or creates diamonds, right? So it's either going to break you or you're going to become a flawless diamond out of the pressure that has been put upon you, right? Now the pipes can break, but how do we fix them, right? And like we don't seek those opportunities of being broken. Like, oh, break me! I want to be broken so I can be restored. Like we want to just be good, all the time and become that diamond as quick as possible.
Takes many years.
Yeah. To make diamonds.
Have you seen that firsthand though? The whole breaking under pressure, whether it was through your experience or maybe through a student, a peer that you've seen in the competitive circuit.
This one student that comes to mind, he was a younger boy. He was probably like 12, 13. Kid was super sharp, man. And his dad was all about like having him compete. And I was like, okay, cool. I will train him. He went through his entire camp, unfazed. I could throw anything at this kid, like physically and mentally, like testing him. And the kid was just whatever, right? And would get through it. As soon as he got into the ring, he froze.
The in the ring nerves.
He froze, and he comes back after the first round. The kid chewed him up. The other kid chewed him up, and he looks at me and he goes, "What happened?" And I'm like, "You froze."
Tell me.
I said, "You froze. You didn't do anything." And his dad's like, "What are you doing?" Like he goes, "I don't know. I'm gonna go back out there. Round 2. Here we go." Yeah, he froze. So the pressure of being in that environment really took it to him. Like really created a lot of like weight on his shoulders. Man, I sparred with that kid. Obviously, I didn't go super hard during his camp, but like I pressured him. Like I put him in corners. I would just throw lots of shots at him because at the end of the day, like it's not about like how hard you get hits. It's specifically coming from a kid. It's when kids get overwhelmed, they shell up. So like I would just overwhelm him with strikes and combinations. Kid was like, no, pop, 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 boom. He would hit me in the middle of these combos. And I'm like, this kid's golden. He's great. He's going to be great. So he didn't do too well.
As soon as other people start watching in on him, that's when it's.
But he learned from that.
He
did. He did. His next competition, unfortunately, he went to another school because we weren't able to give him like the level of coaching that he needed And I was always one to admit, like, look, man, I don't have the time to dedicate to just you specifically to get you what you need. Let me send you to another guy who I know who can help you with that. Right? So he did. He went and trained with this other coach who's one of the most highly regarded coaches in the area when it comes to competition training. And the kid now is a monster. He's 18 years old now, and him and his little brother are monsters. Yeah, no one touches them.
That's
That's
awesome.
nice to know that I had a small development in that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So moving on a little bit more into the faith side, I would say we did a little bit on that reflection. Now we're going into faith. So you said in a convo that your biggest development in the past was about your faith.
Yeah.
That was actually the one that we had a couple days ago. Yeah, that was the one we had a couple days ago in the parking lot. I wanted to dive into that because I mean
Yeah.
that can go a lot of places.
It can, man. And I'm gonna try to talk about this without like getting in my feels a little bit because every time I do, it really hits me hard because first and foremost, like uh, submission was not an easy thing to me, and submitting to someone, whether it be you or another individual, like was not a mindset that I had. But submitting to God and fighting from my knees, opposed to from a position of standing up with my hands up, chin down. Um, no greater feeling in the world. Because from what I have had happen in my life in the last like 6 to 7 years since I really started to dive into my faith, and the moments of like being broken down and experiencing a miracle and or a moment where God's like, all right, I'm gonna fix it, and it fixes and I'm fine and everything just man, it's good. It's so good. And like my faith right now is what I live for. And I was challenged last year by my pastor to be bold in my faith. I used to hide it. Yeah, because um, it's not a thing that's like accepted. I don't want to say it's not accepted in the world right now, but like from where I'm at in my martial arts career, like martial arts and faith really have never been like a thing.
Yeah.
Because the whole martial arts industry is driven by ego and pride.
Oh yeah.
Right? So how does Christianity reside in that environment?
Question I have for you:
Yeah.
how those two worlds, whenever they conflict,
Yeah.
how do you deal with
Well, I think of in the sense of like Jesus, man. Like if you think about it from this perspective, Jesus did everything that everyone else was not doing. He walked that path that no one else was, right? And at the end of the day, if we conform to the reality or the world that we're in, uh, we are we are not we are not. I want to be careful. Um, we're sheeps without shepherds, right? So if we conform and we just do what everybody else is doing, right? That's easy, right? I love challenges, and right now with my faith and my Christianity and my walk, like it's challenging to be
it?
that
Shepherd.
person, to be that different person in the world, right? And you know, you're consistently criticized, you're consistently called out,
Questions.
questioned, right? Um, and it's really forced me to really dive into the Word, right, and be able to give responses to those questions. And I'm not going to judge you; it's not my job. I'm just going to talk to you about it, right? And people that come at you with that, they always feel like you're judging them with your responses. But I've experienced so much uh, in a positive light. I've seen other things happen to other people that I'm like, there is no way, there is not a God. There's no way.
That's What are some of those examples? Because I have had the way that I described God's work in my life, a lot of my friends are able to easily pass it off as coincidence. One good thing happens after another.
Yeah.
It sounds like you have something a lot more
Yeah.
solid.
Well, I mean, I've had a couple things happen to me in the past like 6 years. Like, think about which one I want to talk about. Okay, so I'll use this as an example. Before, um, I was gonna buy a gym, right? I had worked for UFC gym for 5 or 6 years. I was gonna purchase this gym because the owner wanted out. Um, I was like, okay, cool. I put 5 years of blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. I made it to where it's at now with who, like, as my role as the general manager. I had my own team there. Like, let's do this, right? Why not, right? Um, I ended up not doing it because 5 days before I was going to sign all this paperwork for a 10-year lease agreement, a 10-year franchise agreement, I was driving in a Monday morning into work, and I kept hearing God tell me, run the numbers, run the numbers, run the numbers, run the numbers. And I'm like, no, I've ran the numbers several times. This all makes sense. I would have been able to take over the gym and be able to have a profit year one. Easy day.
Sounds like a great deal.
Because of how it was set up, right? We had over 200 some odd members, this, that, and the other. Like, it was solid, right? So I called my guy that I was grooming to be my general manager when I took over. He was really good at math, and we ran some numbers again. And I was like, oh wow, we missed $150,000 that we weren't even.
50.
Oh yeah, that we weren't even considering year one. 150K that we would have had to pay right away once I took over.
Wow.
So God told me to run the numbers, ran the numbers, and that showed up 3 days before 10-year leasing agreement, 10-year franchise agreement. So that's one testimony, right? So I told the owner, I was like, hey, look, man, I can't do this. I got to, I'm out. Like, I got to find another job, this, that, and the other, because he needed to shut the gym down, because he wanted out. So for months, looking, nobody was responding, applying everywhere. First place that calls back is Starbucks. I'm like, okay. I mean, it's a job. I need to pay the bills.
Something.
Right? I was able to land that job within 6 months. I was promoted to, where I'm at now currently. But in that moment, like, I was literally broke because I took a $20,000 pay cut when I went into Starbucks. $20,000, like, gone, because I just needed a job, right? So for 6 to 8 months, I was living from paycheck to paycheck. I mean, trying to find money somewhere, like, looking everywhere. And I was talking to my wife about it, and I was pretty broken. I was like, look, this is hard. I can't, like, support us as a family. I feel inadequate as a husband, because at the end of the day, that's like our job, is to support and provide, right? And she says, well, are you praying on it? And I'm like, yeah. And she goes, well, what question are you asking God? What are you asking him? I told her, I was like, I'm asking for the promotion. Promotion, right? And she goes, are you asking him the right question? I said, what do you mean? She goes, what do you need? I was like, we need money. She goes, are you asking for money? And I was like, no. And she goes, why? I said, because it feels selfish. It feels selfish to ask for money. She goes, Daniel, God wants you to live a fruitful life. God wants you to live a life of comfort when it comes to just, like, being able to provide for your family and stuff like that. And she goes, it sounds like to me you need to stop dancing around the question and ask him. He wants you to ask him directly. And I said, you're right. I've been dancing around the idea because of my mentality with it, like asking for money. I struggled my entire life asking people for money because I felt like it made me look weak. And that goes to your pride, right? So my prayer was the next morning, I asked him for money. 2 hours later, I got my promotion, right?
Great how that
Yeah.
works.
Yeah. So, I've been at the store that I'm at now for a super long time, and I've been able to help them. But like that moment of me asking the right question and being direct with him showed that the relationship that I want with God is one of being upfront and transparent with him, because that's all he wants at the end
Because in regards to my faith at least, I'll be honest, I'm not the best about it. Or I would say that I'm not the best when it comes to reading, all that, and when it comes to praying. I always had the idea of dancing around the question, so I've currently been just want to live a fulfilling life, a
of it.
life that is abnormal.
Mm.
And so I keep asking for God to give me challenges that are abnormal, give me challenges that will give me wisdom, give me the experience that I'm hoping will turn into generational wealth, everlasting memories, etc.
Yeah.
I've never thought about just asking directly.
So like, if you think like God does not want you to be like coy, doesn't. If I'm coy with you and I dance around questions and I don't ask you directly, and you know that, let's say you know that and you don't say that to me, how does that make you feel? It offends you, right? Hey, this individual doesn't respect me because he can't ask me questions directly, right? Ask them directly and he will provide, because that's what he wants you to do. He wants you to trust him. He wants you to trust him. And if you dance around the question, if you never ask him the right question, there's no trust there.
That's great. That's really good. So you went into a little bit on what prayer for the promotion looked like, but
Yeah.
in general, whether it's like a general topic or even what do your actually?
So, I've been on this like the last like year or two, like kind of upgrading my prayer life. And what I mean by that is through prayer is really where we develop our relationship with God, right? It's almost like um, I didn't talk to my dad a lot, just because he's there. He's my dad. I love him. He's just there. But all my dad wants is to talk to me and to be a part of my life, right? And that's what we do when we pray to God. 9 times out of 10, most people only pray when they need something, right?
Sounds familiar.
Yes, you only pray when you need something, right? And I'm guilty of that, right? We all are, like, because we're in trouble, we need help, and we feel like that
We
no
can't,
one else can help.
can't call anyone other.
Yeah, but him, right? But think about how much your life will change if you consistently pray. And you pray not only just to pray for something, but you pray also to just to communicate. That's how we talk, man. That's how you talk to God. The dude just wants to sit down next to you and experience life with you. That's all he wants. And if you shift your perspective on that, and if you don't, and if you communicate with him more, pray more, your life you'll see so much more happen. I can assure you, because I can physically attest to it. I can physically tell you that since I dove deeper into the word and prayed more, things have been falling on my lap that I've been asking for. This thing with David, having an opportunity to teach kids again,
Yeah.
right? Because I wanted that, because I feel like that's what I've been, like I told you, been put on this earth for, just to teach in general, right? But also to like the jobs and the promotions, and you know, my relationship with my wife is getting better and better. Marriage is not an easy thing. It's not. So like I pray about that. I try to pray at least 3 times a day. Morning, afternoon, evening.
Okay. So it's
And even if I find like if I don't have anything to pray about, just pray for like be grateful that you're here. Like gratitude, man.
yeah.
Right? Gratitude, being grateful that you're able to make decisions and do things that you want.
Don't
Right?
know if this is the right emotion, but I think it's maybe grief or it's like one of the negative emotions. It's a part of the brain, but whenever that whenever you're grateful, it actually submits that negative emotion. I know off the top of my head, but I think it mentions it in the Bible as well about gratefulness overcoming. I'm gonna say it's grief. I want to say that.
Mm.
Um, and just that thought of like gratefulness has definitely improved
Yeah.
life overall as well.
And it's not like if it's a challenge to think about like being grateful or have gratitude, like just be optimistic.
Yeah.
And you have like like you're super optimistic, man.
I get told that so much at work.
But that's good.
It's great. I love
How is
it.
that bad? How is that bad?
I do not take no, I definitely take it as one of my biggest like
Yeah.
features that I'm very, very proud of.
Yeah.
And it's something that I think that not to say that my team is negative, but it's just I feel like I am absolutely needed there.
Yeah.
For optimism and just a brighter spirits.
Yeah. So like optimism creates peace within yourself.
Absolutely.
And that's what God wants us to have is that have peace that makes no sense to people. Right? Like, how are you so positive all the time? I used to get that all the time too. How are you so positive all the time? I don't know, man. I'm just looking at the glass half full.
Yeah.
Like there's always a silver lining in something.
That's teaching from my father as well. As he was always a glass half full person.
Yeah.
And he structured that very, very early on in my life.
Good. Very good.
So you said you had the habit built morning, lunch, evening for your prayers. How about reading? How about when it comes to actually reading the Bible and reading?
So within the last 2 years, it's been like a really big thing for me to try my best to get into the Word as much as possible. I do my devotionals. Once a day. I typically will do them in the evening time. People normally do them in the morning. I do them in the evening because it's like it's a point for me to kind of like digress and go over my day and what's happened and so I do my devotionals, which obviously has some content with the Word. Always has like a subject of the Word. But I'm leading a men's small group now, which is forcing me to dive into the Word more because how can I go into that unequipped?
Yeah.
Right? I have to. Right? So God is creating these opportunities for me to being forced to dive into the Word more. Because
similar to the challenges I was mentioning earlier.
Yeah. So I try to have that. I have one in my car. I have one in my nightstand. And so usually I have a Bible. If I'm at a point to where I'm being challenged with something, I will reference scriptures about, adversity.
You always have your notes on you.
I'll usually pick one that really resonates with me and I'm like, oh man, that one sounds cool. Let me dive into that and get perspectives and ideas from different pastors and different leaders and different people that have really dove into the scripture and see how it can apply to me.
I'm curious to see how that would respond to our social media. Do like a little mini lesson in that sense on social media. I think that would be
Dude, I would love to do that.
Really, really valuable.
That would be something that really would intrigue my interest. I really want to get the word out, man.
Go ahead and tell them to follow then.
Yeah, we're gonna make that happen for sure. I would love to get the word out, man, because my goal is to get people saved, man.
Hear that, guys?
To build God's kingdom.
Go ahead and drop a follow if that's sound of interest to you. That's awesome. That was really, really good.
Yeah.
All right. So you said that you were someone. So actually, I'm wondering, were you someone that grew up religious?
So no.
Okay.
My parents took me to church every Sunday. I didn't know what was going on. I was just there.
Just force of habit.
Yeah. So no, I didn't grow up religious. My parents tried to instill that into me at an early age, but it really didn't take. It was just like a chore for me.
That's
I feel like most kids
I feel like that's with everyone.
Yeah.
It's the same exact way with me. I don't want to say that as far as I started to resent God or church because of it, but I mean, it was just annoying to
Yeah.
like wake up every Sunday and just
Yeah.
be like, my parents had to bribe us with donuts.
Right.
So,
And so like as time went on and I got older, like my parents gave me the choice not to go or not, right? Um, but my biggest thing was, and this is where I kind of fell like off a little bit, was I had a big problem with the church and hypocrites.
the ones who stood on a high horse.
And literally
That's
spoke lies all
yeah.
day, right, and to your face. So, but then like as I got older and I went through my walk, like I began to understand that none of us are perfect, right? We're all gonna fail. We're all gonna, make bad decisions because we are only human, right? And then once I had the mentality of like, hey man, look, it's okay. People are gonna consistently disappoint you because they are.
Yeah.
Realistically, they will because we are not perfect, right? Um, and that's when I started to get the idea like, okay, well maybe I can be accepted by God because I'm not perfect. And that's where the mindset started to trickle in. I'm like, okay, well, and then what the biggest thing for me was one, I forgot who it was. I think it was um I think I caught like a YouTube video and I was like going to church and I was like trying to get into the faith and the whole idea of being like accepted by God. And one guy was like, did you know like half of the people that were involved in like writing scriptures in the Bible,
Mm.
books in the Bible, there were murderers, they were thieves, they were, and he goes, if you think that you are imperfect, look at these guys and look
Yeah.
at what they accomplished through Jesus. Right? And I was like, okay, then it's not that bad. So then my walls started to come down a little bit, realizing that, like, okay, this could be something that I could enjoy.
Grace starts building. That's the by far the biggest fear that I had coming back. I would say coming back into faith is the judgment
Hmm.
in that sense. I was very, very scared to come back to my church
Yeah.
because they haven't seen me since I was 12
Yeah.
and I kind of just left them.
Yeah.
And they came back and I came back and they showed me nothing but kindness and grace. And that's when I realized that my church was very, very keen on that, is showing grace to other humans.
Yeah.
This is some,
Yeah.
and that it was never a case of them forcing me to start coming back or like really, really pushing at it. It's like, you go ahead and come back when you want. I was like,
Yeah.
now that just makes me want to come back now.
Yeah.
Uh, that's interesting. So you said that before, so you said beforehand that your calling you felt like was to go ahead and like for to teaching kids and all that. So how did you get that? Because I would have assumed like a big calling, like that's my purpose on earth, would have been a calling from God.
Yeah.
So how did that? I would say backtracking a little bit. How did you get that calling?
Uh, to be quite honest, I felt like it was something that I felt so good at. I'm kind of patting myself on the back a little bit here. I felt so good at being able to develop relationships and interact with people on a level that they needed when they needed to hear specific things at a certain time. Uh, I kind of credit my dad to this too. Like my dad is very good at with people, um, and I kind of grew up like watching him work with people. And but anyway, I look back at the kids that I have taught and just the people that I have taught and seen where they started and then where they were at in their lives and as far as like their skills go with martial arts. And I saw their abilities like at a high level, right? And I was like, maybe this is what I'm here for, right? Because I've had a lot of success with it, right? It's something that I love doing and it brings me joy, right? So it reinforced the idea and the mentality like this has to be my calling. I
Has
haven't specifically heard it from God.
I was about to ask, have you
Yeah,
gotten any signals or
I haven't
when?
specifically heard it from God, but sometimes He speaks very quietly, and it's really hard to hear Him sometimes if we're not listening.
It also helps to look around and just see.
And maybe it's not Him speaking. Maybe it's looking around and observing and seeing what you have created with the things that you have done in your life with other people, right? There's different ways to hear.
Yes, that's a big question I actually have for you is how is it that God speaks to you? I would assume that it's not necessarily you know, an audible voice that I could
He,
hear the same way you could hear.
I, so I've heard Him since I've walked. Restarted my walk. I've heard Him distinctly three times. Other times I've seen signs.
That's okay. So a lot of all right. So with signs, I want to dive into that, then we can
Yeah,
go into the speaking.
yeah.
With signs, what does that entail?
So it could be a sign that when I'm asking myself questions, like talking to myself, which essentially is me praying and evaluating with God. In the scenario like I'm struggling with, I'll be like, hey man, what do you want me to do? What's going on here? I'm really struggling with this, and then boom, I'll see something that wasn't there before.
Yeah. Just something that pokes out just that
Yeah,
little bit
and then I
more.
go off the assumption of, okay, are you telling me something? Right?
Yeah, you
Are
get
you
like a second.
are you opening a door? Right? Because we also have to be super cautious. We'll dive a little bit into the enemy. The enemy is
Devil.
he knows his opponent very well,
That's
and
very dangerous.
he can open doors that look good to you, that look like it's the right thing. So you got to be cautious, right? And that comes with wisdom and discernment and speaking to God before you take that step, as opposed to rushing into it. So there's signs that I will see, but then this whole speaking thing, right? And I believe I have only heard God three times, because when God speaks, He wants it to be very profound. Uh, you know, I'll go into this a little bit. I'm gonna get kind of vulnerable.
Do it.
So about 5 or 6 years ago, my wife and I were having some marital issues. We were separated for a bit, for about a year. This is one of my testimonies, and I'll go into it just a little bit. But there had been a point that I like into this separation that I hadn't been able to sleep for 3 weeks, like consistently through the night. I would get like 1 or 2 hours, maybe 3 hours of sleep a night. And I was getting like tired and frustrated about it. And I had recently started going back to church a month before that. So one night when I had enough, I was like, dude, I can't sleep. I'm tired of this. Like, I sat up and I yelled at the top of my lungs to the ceiling, talking to God. What do you want from me? I heard at 3 a.m., go home, son. And I was like, home? I am home. Getting
It's
goosebumps.
like literal goosebumps
Dude,
down my entire body.
right. He said, go home, son. And I said, I am home. And I kind of like thought about it for a little bit. And I was like, home is my wife. And I picked up the phone and I called my wife and I said, I heard something from God. And she goes, God? I said, yeah, God.
Pretty convincing.
Yeah. And he told me to come home. And she goes, you are home. I said, no, you're my home. So from that point,
Here.
we have been back together for 6 years. And interestingly enough, and through that entire separation, I found God and so did she.
Cool.
Right? And now we have a foundation of us two and God. And we didn't have that before when we were married.
Building that foundation. Like that is the strongest foundation to build upon.
Absolutely. So now the alignment's great. There's still the challenges with marriage, I have this mentality now that like, look, anything that happens, I'm here. My feet are rooted in the ground and we ain't going nowhere. We're going to fix this.
Beforehand, it didn't sound like the challenges were rooted into very much anything. Now, solid.
But yeah, that was the one time, one of the times
Yeah.
that I heard him very profoundly. Just a few days ago, I heard him tell me to shut up and listen. That's when I got a text message about my recent job that I just got.
Yes.
Shut up and listen, because all I was doing was complaining for 30 minutes. As soon as I stopped talking, I got a text message from the guy that interviewed me 3 weeks ago and said that he wants to hire me instead of the other guy. When I initially got a no earlier on during that day.
Yeah. That was a very, very cool thing to hear from you.
Yeah.
If you want to go into, honestly, just a little bit on that interview process, that would be
Yeah,
really,
man,
that would be
like
great.
that. So I interviewed with this guy about a month ago, the regional director of this company, and being bold in my faith, he asked me, he's like, hey, man, tell me about the last couple years of your life. And I said, well, I've really been diving into my faith recently. He puts his book down, puts it on the table, and he goes, tell me more. I was like, oh, right. It's really funny too, man, because before I said that, I felt some conviction in my heart to speak up about it, right? So he goes and tells me, like, hey, man, this company that we have is a Christian-based organization that focuses on rebuilding men, right? And I was like, oh, man, tell me more, right? So we had a really great, like, conversation. He didn't really ask me, like, the general interview questions. He looked at my resume. He said it looked great, but he's like, look, man, I want to put you in front of my CEO, like, ASAP. So I was like, okay, great. He says, you don't have any more questions for me? He's like, I don't need to hear anymore. Right? He says, I feel like you're the right guy. Right? So I had an interview with the CEO, and then great interview with that. Conversation went really well. He told me he was looking forward to having more conversations about like my development and growth and moving into the company. He said he was going to meet up with the other guys and discuss the candidates that they had. And I felt like I was
You were in.
I was in. Like, how could
Oh,
I
yeah.
not be? Everything was aligning, right? So then I get an email 2 days ago, or yesterday, I'm sorry, saying that I wasn't a fit. They said my experience was great, my expertise, or whatever the case may be. It was some general email response. However, they were going with another candidate and offer had already been sent out, right? So I came here to teach, and it happened to be a night where I was teaching at 5 and 6 o'clock. No kid showed up that day for some reason, right? Yesterday.
Really?
Yeah, so I was just sitting here for an hour,
Huh.
waiting for the adult class to start, and I I was so angry.
That's just a really good combination of
Yeah,
those two things.
yeah, so angry. So I just started applying everywhere. Like I just started sending my resume out, blah 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 blah. David walks in 30 minutes before class starts, and I was like, "Dude, you're not gonna believe this," and like, cause he knew what was going on.
Yeah.
So all I was doing was complaining, griping. It was stupid because I was pissed.
I would say rightfully so.
Right, but once I stopped and vented and got everything out, and David's looking at me like, dude, I got nothing to say to you, right? He said, hey, it is what it is. Like, I got a text message. As soon as I shut up, I got a text message from the guy that interviewed me originally and said that he is not happy with the candidate that they selected. He wants to hire me instead. And I was like, dude, praise God.
It got
right? Praise God, because you know, I what a whirlwind of a day, right? From going from thinking that I got this job because I'm in the bag, like everything's aligning, then getting the email saying I didn't.
The lowest low.
So lowest of the low, and then boom, God delivers, right?
All the way back up to the
and
top.
that is an example of how he works. You can't hit rock bottom, right? Well, you're going to hit rock bottom, but you got to know who your rock is.
Ooh. That's a great line.
right? God is your rock, right? So when we get to those points of rock bottom, only then will God lift us back up and reinforce that relationship with Him, right? Like now I'm all hyped up about God, like again, right?
That's beautiful.
Right.
That's just
So
awesome.
yeah.
Everything about that.
Mm.
So that was number 2. You said there was 3 though. The trifecta.
Wife, that job. Um, oh, older sister had consistently been for decades pushing me to seek God, right? And I was like, no, man, I'm good. Like, I think the world is the world, and we're just humans, and we died and go into dirt.
So you were an atheist before.
Yeah, essentially.
Full, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And not to say that's like a bad thing, but
No.
it was just my thoughts and my beliefs, right?
Yeah.
My biggest thing, like going, like, I would easily have converted from atheist to believer like that if I was like, hey man, come down and show me that you exist. Give me 2 seconds. Just pop, pop. And just look, hey, I'm here.
You and me had the very much same
Right.
idea. It's like
Hey, I'm here.
all being God,
Yeah.
the creator of the universe.
Yeah.
Pop. What's
Just show
to
up.
stop? What's to
2
stop?
seconds.
Imagine like
Yeah. I'm like, okay, then I would be like, okay, I'm good. All right, I believe, bro. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so, but my sister was like, she would say, like, look,
it takes the faith out of it.
it does, but it also, like, it's not, don't look for him physically. Look for the things that are happening around you that are unexplainable. Miracles. People getting healed from sickness when there was no cure for it. People, falling to rock bottom and literally coming back in through the ashes. Like, look for the miracles around you. That is your physical proof that God exists. And I was like, okay, I might be able to get around that. Like, buy into that idea. But the day that I decided, after my sister had been like kind of pushing me to go and take a walk with God, and I was like, look, I finally told her, I was like, look, you just need to leave me alone and let me make the decision myself.
That's always what it comes down
to. Yeah, I said, Monica, if this is a decision that I'm going to make, I don't need to be forced into it. I want to make it an organic decision and a natural decision on my own to walk with God.
Yeah.
Right? So she said, okay, fair enough. Right? So during the time frame that I was like that I was separated with my wife, I started going back to church because I didn't really feel like I had anything else to lean on. And I did feel like I was going down the path of darkness again, and I didn't want it to experience that again because I knew what kind of individual that I was, and it was not a good person. So I had a friend of mine kind of force me to go to church with them because they wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah.
They kept begging me, and I was like, no, I'm not. But eventually I gave in, and I was like, all right. So I walked up to the door of the church. My palms are sweating. Like, and it was because, Kyle, like, I was afraid of the judgment from others, right? I didn't want to be judged by others because who wants to hear that?
No, of course not.
So, God uses people as vessels, right, to speak to you. And I'm standing in front of this door, and it had been about 2 or 3 minutes of me just like pacing back and forth, making the decision whether to go in or not. And my friend goes to the door and he goes, Dan, it's just a door opens. Think about how much you get to experience, right? I was like, all right, fine. You put it in that perspective.
Yeah.
I'll go in there. So I go in, sit down, and I start to listen to the sermon that day. And it was a sermon about God accepts everybody. And I needed to hear that.
It feels like any like 99 times out of 100, the sermon feels like it's speaking directly to you.
It does. And it does. It really does. But like that case, right? Even more so.
Yeah.
Because the pastor had no idea who I was. This is a big mega church, man. There's like 400 people in this church. But that was the message that was being conveyed that day, that time, at that moment. And I was there. Right? So he spoke to me, I think, multiple times at that point. The door opening and the sermon. So God's good, man. He delivers
Awesome.
when you need to hear it.
That's really incredible, Dan. I mean, that's that entire segment. That was awesome. You mentioned beforehand that you were not the most outright as a Christian because of the judgment that you were worried about.
Yeah.
And personally, I felt the same way in the sense of like the extremists, like the always trying to convert Christians, the ones who are on that high horse. I was very worried of coming off as that, which is why I've never spoken on it really ever.
Yeah.
Never spoken with friends before. But I think that, I would say with the extremists, it feels like the extremists on the, I guess you could say, the side that is pulling more towards atheism and farther away from God per se is what's taking over. And I was just wondering what your opinions are on that. Do you feel like how do you feel on the direction that we're heading in regards to religion? How do you feel in regards to how, if we are able to go ahead and make a recovery, I'd say, and like stray closer to God versus farther away?
So I would say in the last like 2 or 3 years, the presence of Christianity has become way more relevant.
Okay.
It's more abundant. And I'd say this because a lot of your professional athletes now, when they do interviews, after games, post game, stuff like that, specifically in the NFL, there's like 3 or 4 videos that I've watched that faith is the first thing that they talk about. And a prime example, there's the quarterback for the Houston Texans, CJ Stroud. Huge believer. First thing he spoke about when he won his first game was God, right? Another athlete for the New Orleans Saints, a linebacker, gave a testimony after a game, right? So you see it now on these big, big platforms. And I feel like God is doing this because there's a sense of urgency behind it. Because believe it or not, and I'm sure you know, that there is a way bigger battle that's being fought that we don't know about. And saving individuals is important more now than ever. Because there's a lot going on that we don't know about, and we need people to reinforce the kingdom, right? Save lives, man. So I feel like, yes, we're heading in the right direction because I see it more and more nowadays. That it's spoken about in a sense of boldness and confidence. But the enemy is fighting back. The enemy fights back.
My most common example of like when it was, I guess you could say, really bad is, for example, media singers, Doja Cat, Lil Nas X, they quite literally made entire albums and music worshiping the devil, and everyone was eating it up.
Yep.
That was like the first feeling of like being genuinely worried and like scared of like the direction we're heading. Like if we have strayed so far away from God, like, or is there any chance of us making a recovery?
There is, right? And I'll dive into this, right? God created Satan, right? So when you're dealing with attacks from Satan, think about how insignificant he is, because God could get rid of him just like that if he wanted to. But if he does, right, it gives us, if he gets rid of him, we lose the ability to make choices.
We lose that free will.
Right? Then we become slaves. Right? However, being a slave to God wouldn't be that bad, right? But he wants us to have that option to be able to make choices in our lives, right?
Cares about us that much.
Yes. But just think about how small Satan is. He's crafty, he's smart, but he's so small. He's insignificant, right? And I usually will say this because there are people that are like, oh man, the devil's attacking me. I'm being attacked from all sides. Boom, boom, boom. Well, that's because you're probably strong in your faith. Because what good is it to go after somebody who's weak?
Yeah.
Satan doesn't want that.
In a war, the enemy doesn't go for an average pawn or anyone that's
You go for someone who's strong.
the commanding officer.
Right. Right. So these influential people in social media, not social media, but like the mainstream entertainment world are prime examples of that. Because he knows how much influence they have on us. Right? But look, you just got to live with the mentality that the battle's already won. Because it is. Right? And just work on your relationship with God, man. That's at the end of the day that is the most important aspect of anyone's lives, because I would much rather be in a kingdom with just happiness and just good things, man. I don't want to burn for the rest of my life, right? So that should be your drive. That should be your motivation.
Well, I think that was honestly it feels like it's been 30 minutes, but I think it's like almost 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's been awesome. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up with, I did the same thing with David on his interview. So some fun questions to go ahead and lighten it up. That way we can end off on a great note. So we are looking at favorites. So what are we thinking is your favorite martial arts move?
Move?
Yes.
Oh, man. I would have to say the left body hook.
Okay.
And here's why. Because it's such an effective technique, right? And I love like pulling it off during sparring because it's hard to pull off. But the sound that it makes when you hit somebody, that sound, oh man, I'm like, okay, I did my job.
The exaggerated exhale.
Yeah, I mean, you could take down big people, small people with it. So that's
Especially if you get them in like the liver or anything.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
And if you catch them at the right time as they're breathing in, oh man,
the combination of all that.
Yeah.
All right, next up, favorite martial arts movie.
I got a lot of those. I would have to say Ip Man. I really love Ip Man. Like the first one that came out, Ip Man with Donnie Yen. Like the fight choreography, like because I'm a fight choreography nerd. Like
you're gonna love this question then.
Yeah, I love fight scenes. So to me they're art. Like
I love it.
Putting them together.
Mm-hmm.
And me personally, hands down, like that is one of like that whole series, the Ip Man series with Donnie Yen, was like the most perfectly crafted fight scenes I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, man, definitely good stuff.
Favorite fight scene? I would assume it would have to be from that.
Yeah, so it was in Ip Man, the first one, where the Chinese were captured and put in worked as slaves for the Japanese when they went and took over like mainland China, or not mainland, but like islands of China. Yeah. And they were held captive and they were forced to fight the Japanese karate guys, right? Shotokan, like Japanese karate is crazy. It's so good. Like the old school karate. Mm-hmm. Oh man. But anyway, my favorite scene was that Donnie was in this cage with like his other guys, and he saw one of his friends die on this mat, right? Because the Japanese the Japanese general shot him because he tried to take too many bags of rice after he won. So Donnie got really mad, and he has this like little purple potato in his hand that they gave him to eat while he was working on the mines. And he walks out there and he puts his potato. Right, I was like, oh man,
it's about to go down.
So like the scene was him destroying literally like 25 to 30 guys at one time, right? And the things that he did to them, I was like, oh, dude, that's just sheer just rage and just so much focus and determination. Like, he just beat up all these people.
Awesome.
And they're all laying on the ground at the end of it. And then he points at the general like, come on, it's your turn. And he didn't do it. But, like, that was the best fight scene
That's
in the
great.
Hitman movie.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, next up, favorite martial arts fighter.
Are we talking about, like, in the mixed martial arts world or just favorite martial arts?
Literally could be any martial arts fighter.
I mean, it has to be Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
It has to be.
I would say you can never go wrong with the classics.
No, you get like it has to be Bruce.
Yeah.
Just the way that he revolutionized like martial arts training. Like he was essentially the first person that pioneered mixed martial arts.
Yeah.
Combining boxing, weapons, his own striking art, like JK, like combining that and creating Jeet Kune Do, right? Like you got to give that guy so much credit. And like just how cool was he?
Oh,
Like
yeah.
Bruce was the man. Bruce was the man.
Very smart too.
Super smart.
Yeah.
Super smart. Way beyond his years.
Next up, if you could train with any martial artist, dead or alive, who would it be?
Bruce.
Okay, fair enough.
100%. Bruce.
Most painful hit that you have taken, or actually we'll do both. You have taken and given. I would definitely assume that this thing in competitive side.
Yeah, man. Tough to think about that. I know that the one that I gave out was, I can remember that right off the top of my head, was it was a left uppercut to right, straight right hand combination. So it was a straight right after an uppercut because the guy that I was sparring had his head down like this, and the guard was kind of wide open. So I just split the gap. I literally lifted his head up and crushed the right hand. But like the most painful shot I've ever taken was from a guy that he hit so hard, and we could never figure it out. I trained with him for 10 years. Like,
holy crap.
And he did it so slow, and I literally saw it coming.
Oh, no.
And somehow his foot just went right on my face. Right? And dropped me to the ground. And I was like, dude, you know what makes me really mad about that? I saw it coming.
Oh, I would say that wind up, you had plenty of time and you still just like.
I still got cracked with it. Yeah, for sure.
So was he hitting hard just because?
Not because he hit, but because he wanted to hit hard. But it seemed like every technique he threw, it was hard. Because his form and technique was so good.
Okay.
He wasn't doing it like on purpose.
I was about to ask, it sounded like it was just an aggressive fighter. Or like he was doing it on purpose.
He was just a refined machine.
That's awesome.
When he hit you. Like that's every nuance of the technique was executed perfectly. And it just hurt every time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Go to workout song or soundtrack?
I don't really have any. It depends on my workout. Like if I'm running long distance, I throw some reggae on.
Okay.
Because it keeps me chill, and I want to make sure I keep a chill and composed like long distance run, because it's not for speed to finish, right? I want to finish
sprints.
Yeah. It really just depends on my workout of that day, right? If I'm lifting weights, I'm not like really listening to anything like super slow. I've got some high paced, fast music on. Now I will say this: my music taste is like super expansive. Like I listen to pretty much everything.
Awesome.
But if I'm working out, it's typically like, or lifting weights, typically like hip hop. I love hip hop.
You throw around some artists, or you really just like shuffle everything?
Favorite
artists.
I'm really big on like intellectual hip hop, like when it comes to lyrics, right? Because I like words and meaning behind the words.
Not mumble.
No, can't do it, man. Can't do it. I'm an old school head, man. I can't do that stuff, man.
Yeah, it's all good. All right. With that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up with these. Actually, these are a couple questions. This one I like a lot. So, what exactly makes training at your gym great?
Um,
What sets it apart?
well, I want people to feel like when they come and train with myself that they are going to be, um, I'm going to pay attention to them. I'm going to pay attention to their form and technique. I'm going to break down details. I'm going to try to make sure that you understand not only how to execute it, but why you're executing at that point in time and why that's important, right? Um, my goal when I teach somebody is to provide as much value as possible when explaining something or helping you, right? And at the end of the day, I am everyone's like biggest hype man. I am addicted to potential and the potential that people have. Because if honestly, if I can do this stuff, anyone can. Really, in all honesty, like I believe that's what I think. Like there's no reason why you can't do something that I'm doing. I am not talented and I'm not highly gifted. Like I am a humble person, and the only difference is that I have done it for so long. And that's what makes it look easy to like for me, because I've done it so long. You spend more time doing it, you're gonna get better at it, and I want to be there for you when you're doing it, right? But yeah, like I don't know, like I'm not saying I'm the best, but understand that when you come train with myself, like I truly value your development.
Say
Yeah.
someone wants to go ahead and start coming into the gym and start training with you.
Yeah.
Go ahead and tell them how they can try a class and how they would go along that process.
Yeah, it's super simple. You just go on the Katalyst website. There's a link on the page. You guys can sign up to come in and take a class. You can reach out to me, you know, on Instagram, and we could set you up with something like that. As far as getting you in the school here and training, I teach kids and adults. I only teach once a week for adults, but still, like, it's a nice class to take to add to your repertoire if you haven't if you're already doing something. Um, yeah, it's important to keep an open mind when it comes to martial arts training. Like some of us have closed minds when it comes to like my style is the best style because, right? Uh,
I think David said martially agnostic.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that was how
that's
it
a
went.
good term.
It's
He's got,
great.
he's got some pretty like crafty words.
It's awesome.
I
He'll be
don't.
back for the next episode.
Yes, he will.
And also through the power of editing, just scan this QR code. That's the Katalyst website. You can go ahead and sign up through there.
Sweet.
Yeah. All right. With that being said, I think that is everything for today's episode.
Nice. Well,
Dan,
thank
you
you
wanna
guys.
cl-
I appreciate everybody listening in, and hopefully this is some added value for somebody.
Oh, I know for a fact it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead and like, subscribe, comment. Let us know what you guys appreciated about the episode. Let me know what you guys want to talk about in the future. Yeah, like I said, David will be back for the next episode, so that'll be a lot of fun. Hey, thanks for having me, Dan.
Yeah, appreciate you,
It was
man. Thanks.
awesome.
Yeah.
All right, see you guys.
Bye.